Hey Transformers fans, welcome back to another video review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the new Berserker figure from Transformers The Last Knight toy line. This is a deluxe size figure, Decepticon Berserker. One of the first wave of figures that's come out, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how, of all of the figures that I've received or that I've purchased from the Last Knight toy line so far, as much as I love the look and the style of this guy, he's had the most, I guess, sort of like issues or quality control or whatever you want to call it. You know, most things that I don't necessarily like or was a little disappointed with so far. You know, when I compare him to Barricade or I compare him to my Prime or my Grimlock or any of the other figures, even from past lines that I have, this guy has some issues that none of the other ones have had, or at least not to the same, nearly to the same degree. But that being said, I still do really like the figure. I think he looks great. But let's start with obviously the packaging. So we've got Decepticon Berserker, deluxe size packaging in the new box that they're doing for deluxes. Nice picture, as they all have, of Berserker kind of wrapped around there, and as you can see, he's looking pretty intense in the artwork there. You know, very much inspired, or similar to the Dread Transformers or the Dread Decepticons from Dark of the Moon. You know, he basically got exactly the same head sculpt. He's got these kind of Predator style Dread hair things coming down. The claws, everything just totally aligns with the look of those three figures from the Dark of the Moon toy line. So I'm not sure if maybe this is kind of like a Decepticon soldier or foot soldier, and maybe this is like cannon fodder for the Autobots over the years, and it's just sort of a standard troop like a Viacon or something like that. But will obviously remains to be seen because the movie hasn't been out yet, but I guess we'll find out. Looking at the back of the packaging, you've got a nice picture of Berserker there in his robot mode, picture of his alt mode. It says it changes in 17 steps, but it feels like a lot more, and I'll get to that as we go through it. Bumblebee and Barricade from the other deluxes that are in the line. And then very short and concise bio, Raging Destroyer from Decepticon Berserker. So we'll see what that means in the movie. I never showed this off before, I think, in the other videos that I've done, but nice little artwork on the top of the box there of the Decepticons. We've got Berserker, Megatron, which I cannot wait to get the new Megatron. He looks awesome. And then Barricade, which is a great figure. If you haven't picked him up yet, you probably should because he's good. Yeah, that's the packaging. And looking at the robot mode of the figure itself, I think it looks really nice. I think the paint apps are nice. I think the general proportions of everything are really good. He doesn't look like he has giant arms or legs or anything like that. Everything scales nicely in terms of his proportions. Where things do tend to fall down on this guy are in some of the quality control issues. Now, straight out of the box, when I picked him up and I started like fiddling him with it or whatever, this happened right away. His head popped off. It's on a ball joint, so yeah, it's okay if it pops off because it does pop back on, but it is a really loose ball joint. Like, it does not take much for that to come off at all. I'm barely pulling on it, and it's just, that's one thing that I have not really experienced in a lot of the figures that I've bought. They've always been pretty good that way. So that was a little bit surprising. Maybe I can put a little clear nail polish on there and tighten up the ball joint a little bit so that it doesn't pop off quite so easy. But I can see that if you're a kid playing with this guy, you might be a little bit rougher than your average adult collector. That's going to really get on your nerves after a while, is his head popping off. One of the other things that I have noticed as well is that his weapons, which actually, let me talk about the weapons for a sec, because I dig these. And the reason that I dig these is because these are the weapons that, if you'll recall from the Dark of the Moon movie, when Sideswipe and Ironhide have their quote-unquote Mexican standoff against two of the Dreads, they all drop down their guns, and then one of the Dreads has these things that pop out of his back, and then he throws them at Sideswipe and Ironhide. So they're just kind of like, backup spear weapon, melee weapon things. But anyway, so that's really cool that they put these with him. Because that again leads me to believe that he's probably more of a Dread, like a soldier, foot soldier for a Decepticon army or something like that we will see more of. But given the fact that the Dread that we got from the Dark of the Moon toy line came with that big MechTech claw weapon thing, that why couldn't they put something like this, which is the weapons they had in the movie, with the figure that you're buying because you watched the movie and you liked the movie. Anyway, so this is, I'm glad that they put these in here because these are, you know, neat little melee, you know, nasty little weapons that a Decepticon soldier would have. But his ability to hold them is somewhat limited. You know, it's a relatively loose fit in his hand. And one thing that I want to show that I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but the way the arm kibble, the panels on the side, fold up is that it actually ends up hitting the bottom of the weapon because the hand tilts up and down on that hinge. When you close this, if it's not like, it's just an awkward fit. So it's, you know, don't expect him to really grip those if you're moving his hands around and holding it, it'll fall out. But, you know, if all you're doing is holding him on a shelf, he'll hold it just fine. Yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing is that all of the other figures that we've received from the Dark of the Moon, yikes, I keep saying that, from the Last Night toy line have had really clever, good weapon storage. You know, Barricade, you can put all of his weapons in both modes on him. Optimus Prime, he's got the sword sheath, and then in truck mode, you've got a place for the sword and you've got a place for the shield. You know, even Bumblebee has the places where you can store his little ninja stars, but this guy, the weapon storage on this guy is really not great, awkward. On vehicle mode, it's fine, and I'll show that off, but robot mode, they're just really supposed to, like, clip on there. There's a little, like, you can kind of see there's a little notch in the weapon right there, and that's just supposed to, like, clip on the panel of his backpack like that on both sides. And, you know, they're not gonna stay on there. They're loose, so they could do better. You know, they could just have like a little clip or something that these things pop into and it would be a lot better, but that's how he's supposed to carry them around if he doesn't want them in his hands. But anyway, so the figure itself, like, I like the paint apps. The head sculpt has a really nice head sculpt. It's got nice paint apps in it. It's not just solid. You can see he's got red eye paint on there as well. Very, very tiny little red eye paint, which is cool that they painted all 8 of his eyes, which is neat. He's got this red X on his chest, which I don't know is maybe like the mark of the Decepticon Destroyer or Berserker, you know, soldiers, foot soldiers or something like that, maybe, I don't know. He's got some red paint on his arms. He's got fingertips that are painted. His knees, his feet, all have paint apps on them. All in all, it's a pretty nice paint applications on this guy. You know, these horn things on his shoulders are actually, I think they're painted. Yeah, they are painted plastic, because if you look on the inside of that ball joint, focus, yeah, it's tough to see. It is actually a dark gray plastic that they've painted to be glossy black, so that's painted as well. Overall, yeah, pretty nice looking figure. You know, he does have the, you know, the chicken leg or the alien style leg stance, you know, which some people like, some people don't like. I don't mind it because he's an alien and doesn't necessarily need to have the same joints as a human being. But it does make some interesting poses, some hard poses to get him to stand in certain ways. You know, just generally standing he's fine, but when you want to get action poses, they don't always line up. He does have like a heel spur that folds out to give him a little bit more stability. But as many reviewers have pointed out, you cannot just straighten his legs and have him stand because of that. The way his foot is molded, he won't stand straight like that. So you've got to have him kind of with the chicken leg proportions. So, but yeah, so standing him there in bot mode, let's bring in a couple of other figures to compare. So as I mentioned, I do have his wave mate Decepticon Barricade, which I really dig that figure. I'm not sure if you saw my other review, but I really like the new Barricade. He's pretty cool. Here he is next to another Autobot. There's a Bumblebee from the Age of Extinction toy line. There he is with crosshairs. So all of the car bots are looking pretty good. One thing that I will say about the Berserker is that he scales nicely in robot mode, but obviously because of the vehicle mode they chose for him, because it's a big SUV, it doesn't necessarily scale with the car bots in vehicle mode, but we'll show that off in a few minutes. And to give you an idea of a scale next to a Voyager, there's Hound. So he's definitely a little smaller than Hound, but looks good. And then we'll bring in Prime just at the back. So he's definitely scaling smaller than Prime, which is fine because that's you know, a good scale for the two of them, I think. So yeah, they look nice on a shelf when he's in robot mode. Now, the transformation is another thing that, you know, really kind of let me down on this guy. Not because I don't like the vehicle mode. I think it's a, you know, fine vehicle mode. They've used it before. It's the big Chevy SUV, but the transformation on this guy is much more fiddly to get it complete than the other ones. So I will go through it relatively quickly, but basically you just sort of fold up the arm panels. And actually one thing that that another reviewer pointed out, I can't remember who it was, so I'm not going to take full credit for this, but if you don't like the kibble on the arms, it does pop off. It's just on a couple of little tabs that slot into his arm there. So if you want him to have no car door arm panels on it, you can take it off, and obviously you've got a piece that you need to store somewhere now, but you can get it off there if you don't want. So those just sort of fold out, and then you're going to take his hand and rotate it all the way around on both sides. That just kind of tucks in there. And then rotate his arms so that they're facing up like that. Kind of straighten it out a little bit. And then these horns, just sort of spin them around so that they tuck in sort of along the side of his arm. They don't tab in anywhere, but they just kind of tuck in. And then you'll see there's a big hinge there for his arm, and it actually focus. There we go. It actually like rotates up like that so that he's kind of like putting his arms over his head like that. Just like that. Okay. Now his backpack, we start to unfold his backpack. We can kind of split the waist, actually, would be another thing. So he does hinge at the waist, and you just kind of pull it down so he's bent at 90 degrees. And then you can start to unfold his backpack. This is kind of like collapsed in here on a couple of different hinges. You just sort of fold that stuff out. There we go. And then just leave it there, you know, kind of for now until we finish some of the other parts of the transformation, like the legs. So his legs, you're going to want to straighten everything out. So you fold in his heel spur on both sides, straighten that part out. There we go. And then just sort of straighten his legs so that they are just like that. And then rotate them so that the kneecaps are facing each other. Just like so. Now you can bring those down for now and fold these panels out a little bit. And you're not going to clip them in yet, but just sort of fold his panels out. Now this is where things start to get really fiddly. So you've got a whole lot of automotive shell, car part shell that you're seeing here. And this is where things get really tricky because everything needs to tab in together. And as you're tabbing things in together, it'll start to come apart on you if you're pushing it in the wrong direction. So I generally like to start with the legs and the arms tabbing in together. Now you'll see a little hole there, right there. And there's a little tab on his foot, and those go into a slot there and a tab there. So if you put those in first, which is really awkward sometimes, but if you push those in, you can kind of get them nice and firm before you join the rest of the shell together. So I do that on both sides. I've done this transformation a couple of times, and this seems to be the best way that I've found to do it. Okay. Now we can start to bring the shell, the rest of the top of the shell down, and you'll see that there are slots there. Come on, focus. Everything's black, you can't really see it, but there is a slot there and a slot there, and then that's where these tabs on the side of the back of the panels go. Slide those in and kind of pull them together. There we go. That kind of gets the back part of this truck kind of together, and you'll see there's a tab there that needs to go on the inside. There we go. Click, click, click. Okay, so we're getting close. Now bring the front part of his hood down, and this is actually on two pieces, or two hinges, so you can see it kind of folds like that. So you straighten that out and just bring it down, and it clips on there. Bring up the front bumper, and it just kind of clips onto the front there. And then you'll see all that you have left is these doors here on the side. And then these have a tab there. Come on, focus. There we go. So there's a tab there, and a slot there, that goes into a slot there, and a tab there. And it just kind of goes like that. Now, what I've found is that you need to kind of put your finger on the inside of his leg as you sandwich this together, because if you push this in, the whole leg kind of collapses inside itself and pops everything out. So if you push your finger there and then kind of pinch it together, it actually helps keep the rest of the vehicle together as you're popping things in. So do the same thing on this side. Again, kind of like pinch that together, and then you'll see that was actually probably the easiest transformation of this guy that I've done so far. Everything kind of tabbed in relatively well. But there's a lot of like panel lines and stuff here that if you push things in the wrong way, they all pop out. So just be wary of that, and you know, take your time, be patient, because you would end up throwing the guy across the room if you get too frustrated. So yeah, there he is in his vehicle mode, and you know, it's pretty standard Decepticon soldier vehicle mode, you know, black SUV. I think it's a Chevy Suburban, I think is what this is. But he looks pretty good, you know, Decepticon logo right there. The windows are all painted, so you don't see, you know, robot kibble through the windows, which, you know, I can go either way. I don't necessarily need to have clear windows as long as it looks nice. A little bit of paint on the flashers on the side. You've got the Chevy logo painted, white headlights. Rims aren't painted, and tail lights are painted, and the Chevy logo again. So some paint apps on it. And then he's got this stupid gray hinge. Why did that not get molded out of black plastic? I don't know, because that is a giant eyesore, and everybody's pointed it out, and everybody's right. It should be black. So yeah, that's what he looks like in vehicle mode. He does have weapon storage, as I mentioned. So basically, you'll see that there's a little slot on each of the inside of his legs. So there's one there, there's one there, and they only go one way. So you kind of align how the hook, right, this little piece on the bottom here, kind of fits into that slot like that, and then you just kind of use your fingernail or finger to push it in, and then that stores like that. The other one, because of the orientation of the slot, goes the other way, just like that, and then they kind of tuck in underneath there, and then that's your alt mode weapon storage. So, you know, he does roll relatively pretty good. So yeah, all in all, pretty decent. You know, a little more fiddly than some of the other ones that I've reviewed so far from the Last Night toy line, but overall it looks pretty good. Now, I don't have any of my other Carbots transformed right now, so I'm just going to pause the video, but you won't see it because I'll just do a quick cut, and then I'll show you how he scales compared to some of the others. Okay, so here we see the new Transformers The Last Night Berserker figure in his vehicle mode compared to some of the other figures that are around for The Last Night. Obviously, we've got the new Barricade here, we've got the new Prime. This is the Age of Extinction mold for Bumblebee, but it's the same one for Last Night, so pretty good for comparison here. As you can see, for Berserker being a big SUV, he really is not scaling in vehicle mode great with the other figures in the line. So if that's, you know, a big concern of yours, you might not necessarily like that. Personally, since I display all my bots in bot mode, or my Transformers in bot mode, it's really not that big a deal. But I mean, if he is in the movie, if he's going to be, you know, scale-wise, SUV size, you know, he's definitely going to be bigger than Bumblebee will be in bot mode, but it's not reflective in the size of the figures that we get. So this is sort of one of the odd ones out that, you know, is a little off in terms of scale, but I mean, that's a pretty minor nitpick, all things considered, considering how much the scale is all over the place for these things usually anyway. But as you can see, he looks pretty good. You know, he's a nice looking vehicle mode. He's pretty clean, except for this, you know, little gray hinge there. There's not a lot of extraneous things that, you know, make it look terrible. It looks pretty good. So yeah, overall, I mean, I'm pretty happy with them. I think that it's a good addition to the Decepticon lineup for the movie figures. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that if you're interested, you can find them at a decent price, because you know, the deluxes are a little bit more expensive now than they used to be. I got him for $30 at local Walmart. That's Canadian dollars. So hopefully you can find him at you know, reduced price if you get lucky. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, he's a nice new Decepticon to add to your movie shelf. So I hope you like the video, and appreciate if you would you know, give me a like or a comment or anything like that. And you know, by all means, check out the rest of my reviews. Would be great to hear what you all have to think about any of the other ones that I reviewed. So yeah, thanks very much, and we will talk to you again soon.